protecting our community is worth a shot. Vaccines can help protect you, your family, and our community. Stop by James Drugstore today.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. This is Group Therapy, a special edition where we sit down as editors of the Livingston Parish News and talk about what's going on locally. I'm joined by my two fellow editors, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. This is always a fun part of the show because they get to guess which one I'm going to point at first. And David, go ahead.
Hey, this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the News.
And the gentleman on my left.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And appreciate you guys taking the time. I was at a convention last week, so we didn't miss last week's show, but we had recorded the week before, a little later in the week, so not too much of a gap in coverage. But today we got plenty to talk about. We actually have some breaking news, I guess you can call it, that Mr. Gray received right before we sat down to start recording. We know that the governor adjusted the mask mandate yesterday, and there were several school districts that had made announcements on how they were going to deal with it. Livingston Parish just released their guidelines and what they're planning on doing. So, David, take it away for us.
Yes. Well, basically, I just got that message as we were walking in here, and basically yesterday the governor announced that he was ending the statewide mask mandate except for K through 12 schools. Now, those schools had the option to opt out of the mask mandate if they went back to the old quarantine guidelines that were set by the CDC. Now, can't remember if we talked about this or when it was, but State Superintendent Cade Brumley basically about a month ago left it up to school districts to decide whether or not they wanted to implement a parent choice option for quarantine. Basically, parents would have to be notified if their child was a close contact, and then they could choose whether or not they wanted to quarantine that child or keep that child in school. Superintendent Brumley said that was to sort of stem and combat this the unnecessary time or what he called unnecessary time that students were missing, for that face-to-face instruction that they've really been, trying to get the last 2 years. So the governor, in his own move, kind of allowed schools, like I said, they could, opt out of the mask mandate, but they have to go back to those quarantine guidelines. So Livingston Parish Public Schools this morning announced that they are going to make masks optional, but they are going back to the old quarantining guidelines, which basically, if you're identified as a close contact, then you have to go into isolation for, 7 to 14 days, depending on, other circumstances, such as whether or not people were vaccinated, how long you're within the vicinity of that person, those sort of things. So, but yeah, like I said, the governor got rid of the mask mandate. I know there's a lot of people were happy to hear that. The state has been improving in its COVID numbers over the last, about 2 months since it hit a peak in early to mid August. But yeah, so that was good news to hear. That's why we're not wearing masks today.
Yeah. I suppose it for the viewers who are I guess if you say they're viewers, you can see that we are not wearing masks. If you're listening, we do not have masks on today. Just I guess you can say celebrate the ending of the mask mandate. Now, you mentioned it in there. One of the most recent, I guess you can say, announcements from LDH is that they are recommending the booster. So tell us a little bit about the booster.
Yeah. Now, at first, Pfizer was the only vaccine that was recommended to have a booster. So if you got the Pfizer vaccine, you were allowed to get a Pfizer booster. I believe it's 6 months after you completed your series, and you had to meet a variety of criteria if you were 65 and older, or 18 and older with certain health conditions, or 18 and older and you worked in a job that puts you at greater risk of exposure to COVID-19, such as, if you're 18 and older, worked at a hospital, for example. Now that has been brought in to include Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. A lot of people were waiting for that news. So basically it's the same criteria. Now it's just expanded to all 3 vaccines. And we're supposed to be hearing in the next few weeks about children under 12 being able to receive vaccines. Louisiana's read earlier today that Louisiana has, I think, ordered around 150,000 doses that will be used for children vaccines. It's a little bit different dosage than it is for the rest of the population. So that news will be coming out soon. So we'll have that whenever that news breaks in the next couple weeks.
So that's going to affect schools in a lot of different ways. Especially with you saying that they're looking at kids 12 and younger as well, and of course, I know there are a lot of parents who are going to be, as you mentioned, excited about the mask mandate ending and schools making their own choice. Now, Rob, we're going to jump over to you since we've been talking about schools. We'll talk a little bit about sports. We're going to say football. We're going to jump back to David, but we do want to talk first about actually two fall sports seem to already kind of be moving towards wrapping up. That would be cross country and volleyball. Parish cross country meet was last week.
Yes, last Thursday.
So let's start with that.
The big news coming out of there, Live Oak goes in with on both sides. They won the past 6 on both sides, and both of those reins were snapped.
Oh, wow.
On the girls' side, it was actually a tiebreaker. Went to a tiebreaker, and you go to number 6 runner, and Denham Springs winds up edging Live Oak for the team title there.
Okay.
Caden Boudreaux wound up defending her championship individually. Hannah Linebaugh from Denham Springs made a late push. It got down to the wire there. Got pretty good, and they pushed each other really well. It was a really good race. And on the boys' side, Walker won their first parish title since 2014. Kennedy won it for the boys there. That's Jacob Kennedy had a nice run. He said he's kind of he's gotten to these things before and had problems with them. Just kind of things just don't go his way. And
Sure.
he just kind of set a pace and said, "Here's what we're gonna do." And I know Coach Johnson had kind of tipped his hat to Walker's strategy. He said they kind of ran that pack mentality that Live Oak normally uses. He said that's kind of what they used on us. And he said we had, instead of having that one big pack, we had 2. So he said it's hard to do it when you've got 2. But it's like he said 6 in a row. On both sides. That's who's going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that happens.
Yeah, so kind of interesting. We have some new one individual defended their title, but 2 new title holders in terms of team turn-in. So that's going to be interesting going into next year. Now, what's next for cross-country regionals?
That's coming up next, and of course, everybody wants to try to see how many they can qualify and get to state, and that's the goal for everybody right now. So that's where we're heading.
Sure. You were at a volleyball game last night. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we should be expecting pairings here next week.
I believe they come out Monday.
Okay.
So yeah, we're looking at that. I went and saw it was Denham and Walker last night. Denham got off to a really fast start in the first set. Scored the first, or I shouldn't say first. Walker went ahead actually in that first set, and then Denham came back and 15 or 16 points in a row and kind of took Walker out of it. And it's like Coach Guidry at Walker said, volleyball is a quick sport like that. And when you fall behind like that, it's really hard to come back and kind of catch up. So by the time they got to that third set, it was back and forth. I think it was tied about 5 times. And then Denham went on another run there toward had some really good net play. And like I told them, it looked like they had, when they needed that power at the net, the power was there. When they needed to touch at the net, the touch was there. And that was just one of those things. And they're kind of gearing up. They're in pretty good shape for the playoffs. They have a tournament there, I think, at Dunham this weekend, and they'll see where they shake out. But they look like they're in pretty good shape. Denham is to make the postseason.
Anyone else you expect?
It looked like Springfield maybe would get in as well. Just looking at the power rankings and like I said, we'll see how it shakes out. Last year, Coach Doobie and I were talking about last season how Denham went into it not thinking they were going to get in, and then when they come out, they're like, hey, we made it. So it's like one of those things where you don't know until it actually happens. So.
Sure.
We'll see how it shakes out.
Okay. So we're going to come back to you for football. We're going to jump back
Sure.
over to David real quick for 2 quick pieces. First and foremost, let's wrap up the news. We're going to talk about real quick. Early voting starts this Saturday.
Yes.
That would be the 30th.
30th.
The 30th. And, of course, it runs for a week, not Sunday.
Not Sunday. It'll run every day, October 30th through November 6th, except for that Sunday. And we have 2 locations in Livingston Parish, the Registrar of Voters office in the town of Livingston and then the Denham Springs Walker branch of the Livingston Parish Library. So those are our 2 early voting locations. In Livingston Parish, just 4 amendments on the ballot. We have a story that ran yesterday in this week's paper. If you want to kind of see, read what exactly those issues are. But like I said, 4 pretty light ballot for Livingston Parish voters, but important issues nonetheless. So go check out to see what you'll be voting for, and then for the November 13th election, you will be voting at your regular polling locations.
So that is coming up. Next, kind of moving over to a lifestyle piece here. 7th Ward Elementary, kind of described as the best kept secret in Livingston Parish. You were able to attend an expansion project of theirs. They a ribbon cutting, actually. They are done, correct?
Yes, they really were done at the beginning of the school year. Basically 7th Ward, they had an expansion done to their campus. They built a new building. They're having a lot of growth, as is a lot of the parish. They're experiencing a lot of growth in that area. So, I mean, last year they added pre-K to the school. They added another kindergarten class. It was about 40 to 50 new students. And then just for those 2 grades, and then, they also get new students in the other grades from, new developments that are popping up around the area. So they needed to expand. So they built this new building. It's 4 classrooms, has, storage, restrooms, all that sort of stuff. They have Wi-Fi in there. That's the big key, and it cost about $800,000, and it finished pretty fast. They started in late March, early April, and actually finished it sometime in July. But they wanted to wait on an official ribbon cutting ceremony till a later time, so they had that last week. And yeah, there's just a lot of building going on, construction going on for Livingston Parish schools. Superintendent Murphy kind of mentioned that when he was speaking during the ceremony. I mean, you have Denham Elementary. That's going to be, they're hoping to have that done at the start of the 2nd semester. The Southside Mega Campus, which is, that's going to be 180-something thousand square feet. That's supposed to be open in time for the next school year. Then you have the athletic facility expansions going on at Denham High, Morapal and Holden. They're supposed to be getting new lights for their baseball and softball fields next year. There's Walker areas and Albany areas. They're trying to build new schools. So, I mean, there's a lot of expansion going on in Livingston Parish school system right now. So that's kind of what Mr. Murphy wanted to get across when he was speaking. That it's not just 7th Ward. This is going on parish wide.
Sure. The parish is growing. Of course, we got the census results continue to increase. Probably a lot of population lost after the flood, but still major gains going on across the area. So, Rob, jumping back over to you to kind of wrap this up. We're moving into week 8 of the football season, or
9.
moving into week 9?
It's week 9
Week
technically
9.
because we lost a week.
We lost that first week, so
That's
the
right.
records are short a game for Livingston Parish teams this year. So.
Sure. So let's talk about what happened this past week and who everybody's going to be facing going into week 9.
Last week, I guess big game for us involving the local teams was Denham and Live Oak, and look, that's where I was, and it looked like Live Oak again, had trouble kind of moving the ball. They didn't get a touchdown until about a minute 30 left in the game. TJ McGee busted a 39-yard run. On the flip side, it looks like Denham has kind of found their, you don't want to say groove, but what they're looking for on offense. They've switched Ray McNeely, their running back, one of the running backs, to quarterback. Starts at quarterback, and it looks like he's getting comfortable. They're getting comfortable with what they're doing, and it's just kind of grinding out. You're not going to throw the ball very much, and neither of these teams did. I think when I talked to Coach Beard last week, he said we'll kick off at 7. We'll be done by 7:25. The first half, I think, took 45 minutes. So it was, and I think it was before 9 o'clock, and I was doing post game interviews. So that was,
sure. That sounds like old school.
I kind of laughed at him a little bit. I said, "What'd you say?" And I said, "Look, man, it's not even 9 o'clock, and we're doing post game. So it's it was but it's finding that identity, and I think that's where Denham's at now, trying to find it. They'll be playing Walker. They'll be going to Walker this week. Walker's coming off a loss to Central, if I believe, it was Central. Trying to keep everything straight here.
Sure.
Central had a big second half in that game, and for Coach Mahaffey, it's just all about kind of, he said we still got to kind of put things all together. And for them right now, it's and for both of these teams, it's trying to get that next win. Coach Mahaffey, he's been preaching to his guys since they got to a couple games in. It's like just keep winning one and try to add on to that. And I think Denham's doing the same thing. So that a lot of the same philosophy. They're both trying to clinch that playoff spot, and that's essentially what they come down to. You got the rivalry game and you've got potential, clinching playoff spots, or not clinching but getting a step closer to it. So it's a lot riding on this game for both of these teams coming up.
Going to be a big night in Walker on Friday. Who's live OCAP?
Scotlandville. Talked to Coach Westmoreland, this morning, and they're coming in banged up. He just to put this in perspective, he said as each district game they played, they've had an injury or multiple injuries. He told me at during Friday's game against Denham, actually played 3 different people at center. That's how the injuries are racking up for them. He also told me that Carson Jones, long snapper, that's what Carson does, long snapper. He's going to be playing on the offensive line this Friday night. So I said, just give me an idea. You don't have to tell me who's going where and who's doing what. Just give me an idea. And then when he told me that, that kind of gives you some perspective of
where they're
the injury situation and what they're looking at. And
Sure.
that's not knocking Carson, because he's a great deep snapper. It's just having him play on the line, it kind of gives you an idea what's going on with them. And then, facing Scotlandville, like you said, he said they can fling it. He said they seem to always find a left-handed quarterback and who can just zip it. And that's the kind of things that we're going to have to prepare for, But on the flip, I asked him, I said, maybe potential there for the kids to look at the record, because they haven't won a district game yet, and to be in this situation. And he said, no, the kids are, they're still fighting, still, they're, hey, coach, what do you need me to do? What do I need to do to help the team out? So mentally, he said they're in a good place.
Sure. So they got Scotlandville. It's always a tough game. It's a tough game to come into banged up. But those kids are going to get some experience.
They're going to Scotlandville too. He said another part of it is they're in their preparations, they've been playing some the loud band type music to try to get them used to it, and that's part of it. Like I told them, home field advantage, man. If you can do it and it works for you, then go ahead, man.
I'll never forget after the flood. I'm trying to remember Coach Bill Cower came down to talk to
Remember that? Yeah.
Denham.
Yeah.
They were playing Scotlandville, and Coach Cower's friend was standing next to me, and he said, shouldn't the referees make their band stop? And I just kind of looked at him and said, are you going to go tell them that?
Yeah.
That's just part of the Scotlandville experience.
It's part of the deal,
And he just kind of looked at me and said, well, okay.
Yeah.
That's just part of the
part of the deal. And like you said, they're preparing for it.
Sure.
It's built into it.
Sure. So let's move over. First, let's talk about 2A Springfield. We talked about it before on the show. Their district has been drastically reduced. So they started off with a much-needed win in district over Pope John Paul, correct?
Yes, had to kind of come back from that. This is we talk about this guy every week, but Jatoris Buggage, he went for over 305 touchdowns. So to say he's been you don't want to say surprised. He's just consistent, and every time I talk to Coach Surpass, he can't say enough about what he's done and what he's been able to do. The big thing for them was coming off of that. They lost to St. Martin's, pretty badly at a point when they thought maybe they were kind of trying to or things were starting to come together for them. So, when I talk to Coach Surpass, it's like, you don't want to say like turn a corner. He said it's more like hitting a reset button. We got a chance to come back and say, okay, this is what we need to do to be successful. And they get that ground game going, and then to be able to rally. Early in the season they might have got down by 14, and that would have been the end of it, but they were able to come back and fight their way back there and get that win. So that was another positive and step in the right direction.
And who they have coming up? Is it Aquinas?
St. Thomas Aquinas. That'll be at Springfield, which he said that's one of those ones that you mark on your calendar, because that's who we know pretty much that's who we've got to get by if we want to win a district championship. And you guys know that that this has turned into a rivalry. It's a rivalry game, and that there's always something going on. The other side of it too is these kids haven't played at Springfield a district game in 2 years. So some of them, it's a new experience just playing a district game because they weren't able to last year. So
sure,
it's just one of those things where he's hoping that they've got everything kind of sorted out, but at the same time they know that they're in for a good challenge against St. Thomas.
And last but certainly not least, let's wrap it up with Albany.
Albany's going to be hosting Beauchesne this week for homecoming. They're much in a situation kind of like Live Oak. It's they get some injuries, and then they get some of those guys back. JJ and Seth Gallion were able to come back last week, and they're lost to Laranja, but they were limited, So and talked to Coach Knight yesterday, and he kind of said that we've got JJ back, we got Seth back, but he had a bunch of kids sick, and he stressed that it's not COVID, they're just sick, just so he doesn't know how many of those kids are going to be able to play on Friday. So once again, that goes into they've already dealt with these injuries, and he's playing these young kids, and they're trying to learn how to get it done, and it's not, necessarily the best thing to do during district, but he also said when you look at Beauchesne, their size, and he said that it's something that they've dealt with all year on the line. These lines are so much bigger than us, and he said we got a couple kids that are about 150 going up against these big guys, and just they're really supposed to be playing JV, but here they are, right? Starting varsity for us, and that's just where we are. So it's just, but he said like his kids are in the same boat. They're just trying to build for next year and trying to keep a positive attitude about it, and that's where they are at this point.
Gotcha. So, and you said they have Beauchesne coming up.
Yes, that'll be homecoming for them.
So, Albany looking to build some younger folks into some threats coming up next year. And, of course, we discussed the rest of the football slate. So, we're going to be wrapping it up here. Going to start with my left.
Hey, this is Rob D. Arman. I'm sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the News.
And, of course, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the News. Appreciate you guys joining us here for group therapy. Again, it's the one time a week where we get to sit down as editors and discuss what's going on in Livingston Parish. Of course, I was not here last week. I was at a convention, so I do apologize, but we are glad to be back here and glad you guys joined us. Please remember the News is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We do hope you have a great day, and we're going to see you next time.